Well, I'm glad that some of us made it here to talk about the Minimalist Entrepreneur. Great book, and unlike the other ones we've read, it's a brand new book, right? So I thought that's different for our group. A few things. I've got a couple general announcements that I'll hold off for a minute. But first, why don't we do a quick roundtable and everybody give us a minute or so on what you've been up to, and then I'll introduce Adam, who hasn't been part of this group before. Matt Smith, what have you been up to?
I've been at my same job, enjoying it quite a bit, and overall very happy. Like a lot of us, there's a lot of time to focus on work and family, and that's what I'm doing. Good. And fighting with laptops as I'm doing right now.
Yeah, we spoke before, and you said that would give you had just enough time to fight with Microsoft to be able to log on.
That was an hour ago.
So Tyler, it's been a while, but you've had some big changes over the last year or more. But maybe bring us up to date on what's going on with you since the last time all of us saw you.
Yeah, right when we bought the house in March. We moved in April. There's been a lot of little home projects along the way, but business is good. Been very, very steady this first year. I broke my annual income record right out the gate. So I've made more money this year than I ever have in my life. And business, just word of mouth is taking off. A lot of the stuff that we learned from the Forest Business School has really let me create a really good foundation for setting up really good systems. And a lot of it is the systems I have are working really well, and I have a great workflow. I'm concentrating on those 20% of my clients that are bringing in a lot of the 80% of the revenue. And just what else is new? I'm closing my fiscal year ends on December 31st, so I'm just kind of cranking in and trying to see how much more money I can bring in by the end of the year. All positive things. I haven't been working full time, but that's totally fine because the house has so many projects on it, and my hair started to grow back since I quit my old stupid job, which is amazing. So only good things. Yeah,
that's great news. Well, as we talk about some of the things in this book, I think you've been living them pretty closely for the last year, so it'll be great to ask you some questions about that. Now, Nate, you've already I think brought us up to date that you sold your house, don't have to leave it yet, and are going to spend the next year building a new one. So I'm most curious about how do you separate from your current workload to take a year to build a house? How do you pull that off?
I fired everyone.
Was it as easy as that?
No, I just stopped taking jobs. I knew this was coming 6 months ago, 4 months ago, and I just started. I didn't pursue any work. I wasn't going after anything. And anything that was coming in, I would just say, unfortunately, I'm booked for the next year plus. I'm building a custom house. Most of the people are asking me are people I know. I could tell them what's exactly going on. Those who didn't, I would just keep it pretty neutral.
Sure.
And so I'm still working. I'm just not taking any new clients. This is pretty typical in my business. People ask you to do something and you have availability or you don't. So.
Right. And I think from our past discussions, you've gotten much better at saying no. I mean, you had to for this, but it gets easier, doesn't it?
It does. You stare at the void when you start saying no a lot. And this has been particularly easy because I know I have something to do. I've got this large scale project I'm going to manage, and I'm not making any money directly, but indirectly I'm creating a lot of wealth. So
sure.
That's so that's really valuable to me. And Yeah, I don't know. No, it's pretty easy.
So no concern that when you turn the faucet back on a year from now that
Yep.
the work will be there then.
I actually don't. I have no idea. In fact, I've completely let go of that piece. Completely.
Good.
I know for a fact there's such a high demand in Vermont right now for skilled workers that I can go do whatever I want to do. Maybe I go work for someone else. I used to cook for a living. Part of me is thinking I might need this like palate cleanser where I just go make lattes for a while for $15 an hour. That might not be financially feasible, but I don't really know. And so I kind of suspended belief there. I put that piece to the side and compartmentalized it, and know that I will be able to pick up the pieces in some capacity. Where I'm moving to is there's a lot of work there, there's a lot of money there, and I think what I do will find a home somewhere. And so I'm moving far enough away from my current like clientele and direct district that I'm going to have to reinvent myself anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a pretty good opportunity to do that in any number of ways.
So maybe some of the stuff in the Minimalist Entrepreneur will be really applicable to whatever it is that's next after this new house.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm building a shop too. So I'm building 2 buildings. I'm building a house and a shop. This is a very strategic long-term move. This is me projecting myself out into my late 60s and saying, what can I be doing? What do I want to be doing? And what does that look like? And then working backwards. So
that's all pretty exciting to have that in front of you right now.
It is. It's horrifying. Like I'd scare shitless. I mean, it's like I get anxiety. It's like it's one thing to do for someone else where you could say, guess what? It's more expensive. It's another thing to do for yourself when you're the client too.
It's funny that you're scared because you're projecting that. It's like, hey, yeah, I'm going to do this. Yeah, I've made a decision. I'm pretty calm about it.
I mean, I had an I've got almost $140,000 in just site work that just got thrown at me today. So I've got a leach field that's 140 feet long. That's going to cost me $50,000 to put a septic system in. This is the kind of stuff that I'm just like, oh my God, what am I doing?
There may be somebody from the FBS group that you can lease an excavator from.
Actually, right before this class, I was like, maybe I should just learn how to run an excavator and just putter around digging holes for the next 6 months. So anyway,
there might be something to that. We might know some people that can help you. So Allison, what's going on in Bozeman?
Well, it's not snowing. That's one thing. But work-wise, I am kind of in the same place that we left off. I still do work with you, Steve, as you know. And I've been working with some of the local nonprofits here and doing some writing and that kind of stuff. So yeah, not a whole lot different from when we last checked in with each other.
So I think that the book we're going to talk about today might have been written more with you in mind than the rest of us, but we can get into that. I want to introduce the rest of you to Adam Ritchie. Adam is in the Global Forest Business School group, which is kind of a new thing I've got going on. I'll tell you about, but I've known Adam for a while. Matt and Adam used to actually work together at one point, but Adam, why don't you maybe fill the others in a little bit on your background and what you're doing right now?
Sure. So background, let's see, was in New York for about 10 or 11 years, running my own ultimately unsuccessful logging business. I'm in North Carolina now. I've been here for almost 5 years and working for a particle board manufacturer called Egger Wood Products. I was kind of at the beginning phases of developing a wood procurement program for them, and yeah, that's been an exciting project. So this was a brand new plant that was built in September of last year. We started production.
So it's pretty interesting what you bring probably to the conversation tonight, having been a small business owner yourself and then being part of your current company. It's not really a startup. They're a well-established company, but this was their first plant in North America, right? And you were there before they broke ground, weren't you?
Yeah, so this is their 20th plant in the world, the first in North America. And yeah, I started with them I don't know, maybe 6 months after they broke ground. Just kind of getting phases of all that.
But well in advance of them starting production, huh?
Oh yeah, almost
Yeah.
a year.
Yeah. So part of the reason that Adam is here is, he and I talk a lot, and if I recommend a book, often he'll want to go ahead and read it. So which is I think what happened with this one. But with that in mind, he's been through some of the books that the rest of you have in the Forest Business School last year, and that I guess leads up to what I can tell you about what I'm doing. So in addition to my usual mix of projects, I've got the Vermont Forest Business School Vermont program that all of you have been part of, which includes, hopefully we'll throw a book out there every month or so through the winter here for anybody that wants to participate. So I've got a group much like yours last year, only we have 3 dairy farmers in it. So, there was a little bit of thought among the working lands people that maybe the agricultural community could get something out of it. And as it happened, everybody that's in the program this year either directly recruited or was recommended by someone from last year. So there's a good group there. And then I thought, well, how much harder could it be to do a second group, right? Because I've got material ready, and it's perhaps less easy than I thought. But I've got a really good group that Adam's a part of. Allison's husband, Kevin, is a part of that group, and he draws diagrams for me during his daughter's Taekwondo class, and really takes the reading to heart. So there are 2 of a mix of people. I've got 2 Montanans, one from Maine, one from Massachusetts, one in Pennsylvania, 3 or 4 in New York, and a lot of different things there. What's been interesting, I thought our group last year really hit it off and liked to talk almost right away. The group this year, it's been a little slower to come together that way, but the global group from Adam, almost from the first session, you folks are very comfortable sharing things with each other, don't you think?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think most of the sessions end up lasting an extra.
Yeah, so it's been fun. I finally got the 2 weeks in sync, so we're talking about the same section of a book or the same book in the same week, and that has made my head a little bit clearer. So that's what I've had going on. So the reason I threw this Minimalist Entrepreneur book out to the group to say, hey, do you want to read this and talk about it? I've wanted to talk about a book that was new, and this really just came out a couple months ago. But also I have a small grant from Farm Credit East to do a forest-based business startup boot camp. So next spring, probably in April mud season, the date and location haven't been determined yet. I'm going to build that around who I can find that wants to participate, but I think there's some key employees or people ready to make the jump and start a business. And if they can come and we can spend a week, figuring out a legal structure, writing a business plan that will help them get financed, and kind of being among a supportive group. I think that's going to go well. We're going to find out how it goes, though. So if any of you know anyone that might be a good candidate, let me know or send them my way. So, well, let's talk about the book here. The Minimalist Entrepreneur was written by Sahil Lavingia. I think I'm saying his name correctly. I had been following some of what he had to say on Twitter for a while. Saw some hype about the book. Listened to a podcast about it. I think I sent the podcast link and said, well, I think I want to read this as background for this other project. And let me say up front that he didn't write this with forest-based businesses or working lands businesses in mind necessarily. Well, unlike a lot of the things we've read together in the past, he did have small businesses in mind, which is nice. We don't always see that, other than maybe when we all read the E-Myth. So I like that about it. And then I thought, well, maybe he didn't write it for, say, our group when we were starting up, but are there things that we can take from it? And going through it, I sure thought that there were. Any of you have any opening thoughts about it, or you want to go through notes? I know some of you read it in more detail than others here. Adam, what did you think when you got into it? Did you think, hey, there's something for me in here?
Maybe a little bit. I'm still trying to digest it, really.
Yeah.
I listened to the book on tape, and I think I need to look through it. Get the same.
Yeah, I listened to the audio as well, and then I read it because I knew I would,
Yeah.
and clearly I missed big. We all know the audiobooks are great, but if you want to find out what's in it, you better go and actually read it. Allison tends to read the print copy. Did you read this one or listen to it?
I did read it. I got it on my Kindle, which is just what I prefer. Although, yeah, obviously it's harder to multitask. Although I did have to do some multitasking, like reading and doing other things. But yeah, no, I enjoyed it. I'm curious to hear everyone's feedback about it. It was, I mean, obviously, I think the main the first takeaway is that it's very tech focused, and what parts of that apply to the work that we do is kind of the question.
Yeah, his focus is on those people that sort of can work remotely in the metaverse or whatever you want to call it and offer products and services online. But with that said, there's, let me just jump right in. One of the notes, minimalist entrepreneurs build on a foundation of community. They should be observant and cultivate authentic relationships. Now, certainly that's not unique to the tech community that you want to do that. When I first read that, I thought he's sort of using community and market interchangeably. And then I thought more about it, and that no, he's, community embraces more than that. I don't know. Tyler, have you figured out the community that your business participates in? Or, I mean, it's more than just the people who hire you, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. A lot of, and I got to admit that I did not read the book, and I only skimmed the notes that Steve passed out. So I can't chime in too much about how this relates to the book, but as far as community goes, just kind of me being tied into this area. So let me back up and say maybe 50% of my clients are not full-time Vermonters. They're not from around here. They have a second home here, or they have or they have plans to build a home here. But that's where the community really comes in. They call me up all the time. Hey, do you know a guy who plows snow, or do you know a guy that could clear land for me and put in a foundation, or who's a good guy to put in a well, or a surveyor, or all sorts of stuff. And I guess that is that's becoming a tie to the community.
Yeah. So I mean, you're there linked to the landscape and everything else there, right?
Right.
So, but if they're asking you that, they must trust you.
Yeah, and that's honestly, my favorite part of the job is just I can talk on the phone to these people for hours, and just like the day flies by. I love making the client happy any way that I can. Just doing a good job for them is my favorate part of the job, really.
So be sure to tell them Nate's not available for the next year or so to do very much. So Nate, you seem to be leaving one community, one work community, and you're going to have to cultivate another. But I mean, if you think about community as opposed to, say, market, what does that mean to you in terms of running your business?
Well, we're a lot of us are word of mouth businesses. So this is the major difference from being in the metaverse. And you can get that in there too, but this is really direct connection with people around a particular land or landscape or place. And so, I'm not going that far from where I am. And so Vermont's a small place. It's so interconnected. I already know people in the area I'm moving to. And, that kind of interconnected networking will just kind of expand as I move.
Where are you moving, Nate?
Weybridge, just outside Middlebury to Weybridge, Vermont.
Cool.
So Addison County.
Yep, love Addison County. Yep.
Yeah, I drive through there on my many back and forths through all that. So Matt, your community, I think, if you tie it to the land base you work with, is 3 states and 26 or more counties and 64 towns. But I mean, it's more than just the people you sell timber to, isn't it? Isn't it you know, you're monetizing a lot of benefits, I think, and handling a lot of costs. So what's the community that your company is part of?
It's pretty broad. I mean, it definitely spans geographically. But I guess the differences you see when you don't go that far is what's really remarkable.
Deer hunters? That's a community, right?
Yes, and right now they're very active.
Yeah, so that's a community that part of the year is really important to you. It's a revenue stream. I know from your colleagues, they get a lot of phone calls because, you know, you tend to be their connection to the land in a lot of ways, and they want to tell you all about their hunting.
Yeah,
and hopefully keep you posted on what's going on in your land, right?
Exactly, and that's the real benefit of the community there. I don't hunt deer. I have nothing against it, but if I did, I'd never get off the phone, because that's if you start talking deer with anyone, they'll literally keep you on the phone for hours if they can. So it's a fun time of year, but it's also a time of year where everyone starts freaking out because they went to their spot and things weren't right. But they are the people that really look after our property and our assets.
So deer hunting and my failures at it have been a big topic in the preliminary discussion of each of the other two Forest Business School sessions.
You didn't have any luck this year?
I'm not done yet, but no. The big Forest Business School winners have been one of the dairy farmers and Allison's husband, Kevin, who keeps sending photos of things that he's accomplished.
No elk though. No elk. That's a big loss around here.
Yeah. Well, he told me they might extend the season for him, but I'm not quite sure what that means.
So far.
Yeah. So Adam, as a procurement person, is your community just your suppliers, or does it reach farther than that, or you seem to be breaking new ground on who your suppliers are? What could you say about all that?
Yeah, we probably have a few different communities. Our core suppliers are sawmills.
Your mic's not working real well.
Try something there.
Maybe pull it in closer.
So it starts off all right and then it fades out.
Yeah. Well,
how about that?
Yeah, that's better.
All right.
It's better.
Yeah, so I would say we have several different communities. Our core suppliers are all sawmills, so the sawmill community is definitely a big part of it. But then, I would say the communities that feed them as well, because they're just as important to us. So that would be loggers, foresters, landowners, and then also the recycling industry is actually something that's we're kind of breaking into that right now as well.
Kind of unrelated or atypical for you but I saw a big thick report that you did and kind of proved that hey, the supply is there, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's definitely there.
Yeah, I like what he said in the book about best communities are made up of individuals who might be otherwise dissimilar, but who have shared interests, values, and abilities. And for me, that this year in particular, with my two different Forest Business School groups, getting to know the people in them better. They're each communities. We've had a lot of overlap. I've had people. One person came and was interviewed in the other group. If a topic was particularly important, someone might attend both sessions in a week. And then watching everybody get to know each other, it's like, wow, here's a community. And then on top of our common interests there, we're all sort of involved in working landscape stuff, and suddenly we're resources for each other. Tyler, you saw that last year when you started up. Suddenly there were people rooting for you, and some, I think, that steered some work your way, huh?
Yeah, Gabe has been great, and Gabe, I still talk to Gabe Russo quite a bit, just kind of picking his brain. The hardest thing about being going from the position that I was in to starting my own thing is that the company I worked for had in-house forestry and loggers, so we were on the same team, and they would share information freely, and you knew they were telling the truth. now I feel like I'm on my own, and I gotta figure out if this dude's lying to me or not. And that's where I give Gabe a call all the time, and I help him out with map. And then he calls me and says, "Hey man, I got this map that's not working right. Can you fix it up for me?" So it's a give and take. But yeah.
So yeah, that's a good strong thing. And I'm not so sure everyone lies as they say what's convenient or what furthers their cause maybe, and there's some truth there somewhere.
I have, I've been working very closely with a forester in Massachusetts, and she was reliving her, she's in a different boat, just being a woman forester, but she was reliving her days as a green forester, and she said, every single logger in the state of Vermont knows you're green, and they're gonna, and they're gonna come and get you. So just watch out.
Yeah. So well, and you're not so much green as that you just didn't have you weren't supervising harvest sites, right? That was a separate business.
Well, I was supervising them, but under the guys that worked for the same company as me, So it's a little bit different. So
yeah, it is.
I have to spend a lot of time kind of vetting these guys and going, is this the guy I want to choose for this job? It is what it is. It's a different, it's a different game, and I'm still learning it.
How do you, Tyler? How do you go about vetting those guys?
Gabe has been really good. I also I snuck in at the perfect time where, let's see, 3 retiring foresters have been just dumping all of as they retire, they're just giving me clients. So I can call them all and say, hey, what do you know about this guy? And it's so funny, the stories that they tell, but he talks a good talk, but he, as soon as he fires up that machine, his tune changes. And so yeah, it's mostly word of mouth.
So word of mouth comes from community members then.
Yep, exactly. Right? Yep.
I mean, if we take a step aside from the idea of community in the larger sense, but the community that you work in. I'm sorry, I cut you off, Nate.
I was actually going to reiterate what you just said.
Well, let's move on to another point. And I thought he had some interesting and straightforward diagrams in the book. So he had this little Venn diagram that says what you want to do and what helps others, and you look for the overlap, and that's what you do. Or or you can do what helps others, and it might not be what you want to do, but if you can't monetize it, then it's not really a business idea. I don't think. Allison, do you have any thoughts on this? I know there are things you would like to do, and they're not always the assignments I throw your way. So how do you find that intersection?
Yeah, that's just as a matter of sort of narrowing it down. You can do a ton of stuff. In the book, he mentions a ton of stuff that he does that is not monetizable, or maybe less he talks about, he does some painting, artistic painting, and various hobbies and interests, and I'm sure he'd love to do all that, but it's well, what are people going to pay you to do, and what does it, and what services it provide to others? Maybe he needs to hone his painting skills more. So I don't know. I don't have an answer really to that question. I feel like if I did, that would sort of open a lot of doors. So yeah, for me, it's sort of a little bit of try and error. What do I want to do? What can I do? And then what other people are kind of finding.
I think we all sort of get to the default. We know what we want to do, and then when someone asks and it falls in that category, we do it. And you can keep pretty busy doing those things, but it'd be nice if there's something else you want to do that solves a problem. And I think we all struggle with that. Okay, I think this is a great idea. How do we sell that? And
right. It kind of gets to marketing a little bit. In some sense, there's a role for convincing people that that this is going to help them, whatever it is.
That's some of the persuasion and non-sales selling we talked about last year. And I don't know. I think when it comes back to it, we all like doing the work, and we're not always great in an entrepreneurial sense. Or, Nate, when you're full on taking projects, sometimes it wasn't your favorite stuff, was it? how do you get to it? You working on the types of projects you want the most?
I don't know. It's just dumb luck sometimes. I mean, I've gone through the full spectrum of this general conversation we're talking about here, and one of my like faults here is that I see projects that I do want, and it blinds me to the financial piece of it. Is this fiscally responsible to take this project? Is it going to make me money, or is it just a project that I'm interested in doing? And I tend to just follow my nose around stuff that seems interesting, and it's worked out okay so far. But I think what happens is sometimes there is that project that seems interesting that is maybe not the best thing for you. They should take, and it's hard to see those when you get into that mode.
I've kind of got to the point where only about 20% of what I do is something someone calls and asks me to do. And I've gotten better at saying no to the ones that aren't winners there, that aren't going to be lucrative. But
so wait, so when you say 80% of what you do,
you're
80%
actively
of what I going after. You're like, I want this, I'm going after it.
Yeah, and I struggle with how can I be better at that or get more. But what I'm working on are projects that I write proposals for and get funded, and maybe on average 1 out of 3 of those really hits. But the ones that have it's taken a long time, but more and more I'm getting them. So like I conceived of the Forest Business School idea and said, well, yeah, I know I can do this. How can I make money at it? Right. So I got funded in Vermont, the global one, which has been really enjoyable, not terribly lucrative, because to get it's harder to say to people, hey, do you want to come and pay a lot of tuition, than it is to say, I've got a grant and I would like you to be part of this group. So I've struggled with that, but something like this this startup business boot camp, I thought it was a good idea, and I thought I knew a funding source, and that all came together in a very short. I saw the RFP; it wasn't too intense, and I had it out 48 hours later, and 3 weeks later it was funded. I wish they were all like that, but they're not. I struggle with, okay, there's some other stuff I want to do. Is it practical? Who will pay for it? I can tell you, after reading this book and following this Sahil a little bit, I think I'm going to put a couple things on Gumroad and see what happens. It costs very little effort to do that. And will I sell a lot? I don't know, but I won't sell any if I don't try. So why not give it a try?
Can you explain exactly what it is that Gumroad is offering? Like what is it offering to you exactly?
So yeah, Gumroad, and that's his core business, and he's big on saying, well, I set out to make $1 billion company. That didn't happen, but I ended up with a company that allows me to do, say, the other part of that circle in the diagram, the things you want to do. So it makes it easy for you to sell your products and services online. So a lot of them are courses and educational products and books. I purchased an audio course on mental models from there that was well worth the money. So, he tries to enable creators to get their product out there in front of people. You still got to refer people there, but he kind of takes away some of the tedious management duties, if that makes sense. So if we go back to we want to be entrepreneurs and we're all good technicians and everybody hates on the manager, he's making some of the administrative part of it easier.
Yeah.
So Matt, how much of what you want to do helps the company? When we talked, you sounded like you had some things last year in the works that were going to be really helpful to the company, but you're spending a lot of time on, say, analysis of property tax assessments and things like that.
Well, that's interesting, because that's actually some of the stuff I think that's most valuable, that I actually have expertise in, as opposed to hunting leases, which kind of runs itself. So I enjoy that type of stuff. It's some of the administrative, day-to-day stuff that was taking up a lot of time. And just like in the 80-20 principle mindset, I've been able to cut out a lot of that. So the time I do spend is more valuable.
Well, that's great.
But I mean, I literally is in terms of what I like to do and what's valuable. It is they are in themselves, if you will. Meaning like the assessment stuff, I've taken another level. This year's, I think since the course ended, I became a hearing officer, so I was able to get these assessors where I make the decisions. These are people that have been battling for years, and I call balls and strikes, but it was a unique perspective, and it's paid dividends for a minimal amount of work. By minimal, I mean people wouldn't know most people wouldn't know how to go about becoming a judge or whatever, but it's really not that hard if you just read the instructions.
So to be clear, you spend outside time on that, so you know the rules inside and out, and that helps you in dealing with all these municipalities around New York, Vermont, and even into New Hampshire. You've got to stay on top of all of those.
Yeah, it's really helpful. And to be honest, the reason I did it was as a community service. I didn't even know it paid, but I knew they needed people, and this was 2 years ago. So with all the pandemic stuff, they were short more people, but they were still having those hearings, even though they were putting off every other trial. They forgot about these assessment hearings, literally. So I took over for a 95-year-old guy who was in there when we really didn't know what was going on in 2020 in May, and it's been great. And again, it's fun to run into the people sometimes. It's only happened a couple times that you battled with for years and years and years, and to learn the process. And that's the thing, when you talk about towns and counties and states, they all differ greatly, but judicial districts within New York State differ greatly. I just find that stuff fascinating.
Well, and you're willing to take on some things that a lot of other people won't. Like, this is the management level stuff to the extreme that most people ignore to their peril, and you find a way to help minimize company costs by being on top of everything to do with the property tax system. And what's more, the better you get at it, then as you go to each new municipality, you're not that one-off absentee landowner. They sort of know that. My impression is they know if they overassess your company, that they're going to hear from you, and it's not going to be. They're going to they better do their homework, right?
That's something I learned this year is. Well, first of all, as far as taxes, we all have to pay taxes. This isn't about getting out of taxes. It's ultimately my arguments for the company are generally when we're not being treated equally. And I can prove it. I can show it. I can make charts. Now this year I got these PowerPoints I'm working on, all very simple things, but I've never done a PowerPoint before. So you just dive in, you start doing it, and then it looks fancy. People like visual aids. I did these 11 by 17 spreadsheets with graduating scales to show inequality last year. That they worked. But what's really interesting, if you go town to town doing these grievances, because they all happen in a short period, is you literally hear a board in one town use the same argument that you used in the next town over the night before against you. So that type of thing. So it's almost like you can get to a point where you know what they're going to say.
Yeah. You made you more aware of everything that's going on everywhere. So I think you might have a Gumroad project or product in the making there to help people to fight their assessments and get.
Sounds like compounding too.
Yeah. It sounds like the whole effort's compounding, right, Adam?
Exactly.
So to move along in some of the things in the book, he it's too bad Holly was going to join us and couldn't, but so she is in Adam's group and taught microeconomics for a long time, so she's my good check person on things. But he had an interesting diagram: 4 types of utility, which he says is economics 101, and maybe it is, but I had to think a little bit. He talks about place utility, form utility, time utility, and possession utility, and they all sort of make sense. But I wonder if we can think of examples from the type of work we do. So place utility is making something inaccessible accessible. So something you're doing is getting them a resource or an opportunity or an experience that they didn't have. I don't know, Tyler, do you have place utility for absentee landowners?
Yeah, I think that example that I gave before is just kind of maybe even just providing them I don't know how to say this, like just giving them a nudge in the right direction to help them find what they're looking for. Sometimes that's all it really takes.
And to me, that's, for you, maybe that's just good marketing. You're helpful when someone calls. You can't charge them for those referrals, but you could be darn sure you're the person they're going to call to update their current use plan, or to have a timber harvest, or to maybe look at a property they want to purchase, or that sort of thing.
Right.
Yeah. How about time utility, making something slow go fast? Nate, is there a premium in being a project manager that moves the building along?
I mean, I'm not really a project manager. I mean, I'm forced into it now. It's like the hat that I do it on a small scale for small scale projects, but I know what large scale project management looks like, and I'm not that. So
well, I mean, is there value in your ability to make something happen more quickly for a homeowner than they could on their own?
So on a small scale, someone could hire a large firm to come do something. They're going to get the resources of that large firm. Their project might not actually need the resources of the large firm. And so when they get someone like me, they might, my ability to kind of move between all these different roles with fluidity can move their project along really quickly. Mm-hmm. Like, okay, I'm going to the hardware store, I am calling 2 other people, and then I'm coming back and I'm just problem solved your project, and now I'm putting it together. And so it's just like, that's all just this kind of fluidity in the work I do.
Is the financial benefit in that you can charge for it, or that it gets you the work?
I think it gets me the work.
Yeah.
And I charge a flat rate. I used to have a scale of rates depending on which hat I was wearing. And I realized quickly that was just getting really complicated, and it wasn't getting me anything. And so it was just hard to track. I mean, I can track it, but it's like 5 minutes here, admin, 5 minutes there, I'm doing design work, and it's just stupid. So I was just like, one flat rate.
Yeah,
you get me. It's my time.
Tedious to do that, like trying to do it by the minute. On the other hand, if you don't, it's pretty easy to give away, say, $1,000 worth of services over the course of a year if you don't charge any. Like Sahil says, charge something. And I like to, once a year for those people that I'm on call for, there's got to be that one item that I can really charge them for, and it kind of covers, all of that.
Well, it could get a little murky sometimes. Like Tyler, I was going to ask you earlier on, you were talking about just chatting with these people endlessly. At some point that's billable time, but it's also networking, but it's also billable time. Like, how do you navigate that?
So like I spent like 45 minutes on the phone with one of my clients who is he's preparing to build a house on this new property that he bought in Vermont. So I guess the first thing is that the reason I met him, I actually cold called him, which I'm not very good at. I found out he had purchased the property. He lives next to an existing client of mine. They gave me his name. I called him up, and I kind of got the sense that he was kind of going to be a pain in the butt client. So I charged him a little bit extra for his forest management plan. Turns out he's a great guy, and he has lots of work to do. So I guess I don't know how to answer your question. It's a little bit of a give and take. at some, but anyways, I talked to him for 45 minutes, but I got another job out of him too. Like he's going to pay me to go post his land, and then we're going to set up, he's going to have me come out and mark trees where we're going to clear a view from his porch. And so I think it was like a little bit of an investment where I put in 45 minutes and he's going to give me 2 or 3 days worth of work. And if I can do that to make him happy, and that, in 10 years when it comes time to write another forest management plan for him, he's going to be totally on board.
So in some ways that 45 minutes is building trust, which is invaluable ultimately in the kind of community sense. Like they trust you, you now have rapport, and more work will flow not only through him, but potentially other people too.
Right. And, honestly, like I said, so the other thing is that I'm so extroverted that working alone sometimes is like, it's tough for me. I have to have podcasts going while I'm in the woods. I can't stand being alone in the woods anymore. But so it was a pleasure talking with him, and it's leading to more work and more trust. So I was happy to do it, yeah.
But yeah, Tyler's the extroverted forester, but
I'm the only one out there, man.
Yeah, you're not the only one, but you are not. It's not a common trait, and I think it's serving you pretty well.
I could hang out with somebody.
You can't very well have that long-term work relationship with clients like that and not have to give them 45 minutes here and there. And the approach I suggest, because otherwise you're going to be on call for a lot of things, and maybe you can be. When it comes time to charge them, to do a lump sum item, you've got to build that cost in there. I've got a handful of landowner clients. I've kind of paired a lot of them off, but it's like I'm on call, and every 5 years I update their management plan. Well, if I've been on call that whole time, when the management plan comes due, that price is going to reflect it. And a management plan update, Tyler, some are more work than others. Some aren't a whole lot of work, but they're a requirement to get them a big tax benefit. So, you can spend some time there. I was on a Zoom call about a workshop opportunity in Michigan, and I hadn't been there before, and I spent probably, it may have warranted 15 minutes, but we spent an hour. But the whole time, I can't believe I was sort of trying to upsell, like, hey, I could also build an app for you, and maybe you want to enroll some of your people in this Forest Business School I have, and it was worth, planting that seed, even if it just means that it's the start of a relationship, and you gotta put something into it, and for every one of those you have, 1 out of 4 or 5 might really turn into something, but to the extent that we small business people do marketing, I think it looks more like that than it does putting your name on the side of the truck or that sort of thing. One of the things he wrote about, and I highlighted, have a solid background or interest in one aspect of the business you're starting, even if you don't know everything. I think where we come from, we almost always come to it with that technical set of skills, and then maybe learn the business part of it later. But it's interesting that in other parts of the world, you're like, oh, I got a business idea, and even though I don't have any degree in this or training, I might just go figure it out. And I just wonder what people thought about that. Allison, what do you think about starting a business for something you wouldn't know anything about? Is it?
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised that people actually find success in that. He had a number of examples where, friends of his, it sounded like, that just had these ideas and started with no background in it at all. I find that hard to believe. I mean, it's obviously true, but
I do, and then I thinking about it a little bit. There are some people though that can decide they're going to study a topic and learn it inside and out. I had a really close friend in graduate school who was on the 93rd floor of the second of the World Trade Center, and got out, and they didn't quite know what was going on, but she got out of there, and other people on that floor didn't, and that changed her life. I mean, she was had been in an ag econ grad program, just brilliant analyst, stuff like that. She bought an interior decorating franchise, which I was stunned to hear that, but not stunned that she could be good at something like that. She did a bunch of research and decided I want to change and did that. Allison, can you think of anybody that likes to just research a topic and then master it? Maybe at your house?
Yeah, that's my husband. He does that, I guess. So it's surprising that they answer the last question. But like personally, I feel like that wouldn't fly for me as well. I don't know why. I feel like that. But no, it is. Yeah, it's inspiring when people can do that. And Kevin, that's my husband. He does that all the time. So yeah, it's interesting.
I'm more with you on that one, but maybe if you can do it as an extension, like I don't know how to build an app, but because it was going to be a forestry app, well, I do forestry, right? So I should know how to do it.
No, but it's not like the examples in the book or maybe some of the things that Kevin has done. Yeah, just stepping into a whole new field and making it work. Kind of.
It was interesting to have him on with some farmers in my other group and say, hey, I'm doing this agricultural project. I don't know anything about it. And they were pretty supportive, though. That was interesting.
One thing that he says is to have a solid background in one aspect of the business.
Right. Yeah.
So you have a connection to what you may not know much about it, but you've got some sort of connection, and that's sort of what I'm doing right now. I knew nothing about recycling a year ago, and but I knew there was a lot of wood in the waste stream, and we need that wood. So I figured out what was going on with the recycling and the waste industry, and that was the connection there.
And another one of his insights, or maybe his inventions, Sahil's in this book, was this verb processize. To test it, they processize their recommendations to take a system and turning it into a process. And I call this group the Creators Workshop, and I think we're all creators. Some of us create piles of wood, and some of us create management plans or structures or complicated assessment analysis schemes and reports and things like that. But that part made sense to me. We all take what we know and what needs to be done and come up with our way of doing it. I'm not sure we can franchise all of it, but we all have, the creative part is us doing that, and the creative part is what's fun about work, isn't it? I don't know, what were all of you didn't maybe get that far in the book, but this processize, did that seem like something you've been doing? You processize things, Nate?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, that's like processize is a little vague. I mean, when I hear that, I think, manufacturing, creating, very clear systems that take one thing and turn it into another. And the way I do my work, it's like not that clear. I want it to be more process based, and coming out of last year's class, I had visions of it being more process based, but then reality kicks in and I just kind of roll with it. And so I do have processes. They're just not as hard and clear as maybe manufacturing process might be, where you put A into B, it goes into machine, and out comes like C.
How to make a Big Mac, right? Yeah.
Well,
yeah, this is not the Big Mac. this is more like put two Whoppers in a blender and see what happens.
take the construction or the assembly part out of it. What about you seem to have a talent for figuring out what the client wants when they often don't know what they want. And you
I think it seems like everybody has that skill set here. I mean, that's like a huge skill set. And it's just being able to talk to people and listen. And, I part of what I do is I just work with people and try to help them realize what they want. They typically have a problem or a desire, or sometimes both simultaneously. And the goal is to just try to, figure out what that problem is and what the best approach is to it, and to try to fully realize that.
Tyler, does
And
that seem
that's a
familiar
process.
to you?
Yeah, it's so funny when like more than half of the people I talk to about their forest management, it's like, what are your objectives? What are your goals? And they're like, we don't know. You know, it's like, it seems like, honestly, it seems like a lot of other foresters just write a plan for people and hand it to them and say, sign here. This is what you're doing. And it blows my mind that, like, you know, these, you know, I could say, well, do you want to like make a bunch of money? Do you want to focus on forest health? Do you want to, what do you want to do? Do you want to do recreation? Do you want to do wildlife? What's your goals here? And they're like, whoa, I had never knew we could even do any of this stuff. Yeah. So yeah, I think Nate hit it right on the head, man. If you can talk to people and kind of gauge where they're at, just give them what they want. You know,
not everybody wants that kind of involved process. That's right. Another thing you're feeling out too, because some people do just want the Big Mac. They're just like, okay, give me my ranch house and plop it here. I don't want to think about anything else.
Right, or in the forestry world, it's they just want the tax break.
They want the tax break.
That's all. They don't care, you know. Yeah.
And I find that for me, those are not my people. I see them and I just run away because I will never make any money. I'm never going to get them what they want. I'm not their person. Now, other people can do that really well, and I'm not it. And so it becomes this. Being a small business with one or two people, that level of engagement and nuance is something that bigger businesses can't really do.
Right.
And so that's the talking to them and the figuring out piece, and that's really valuable. But you got to find them.
Yeah.
So Adam, is it like that at all in your company? Do the people that you have to keep happy by having a supply of wood, do they know what they want, or they just know they want wood at a certain time and the details are up to you to make it happen? How much direction do you get?
Sometimes way too much. Yeah, there's definitely a process for sure. There's definitely a process. They've almost franchised it. All of our other facilities are in all parts of the world, but the process really isn't that much difference no matter where you are. And they've done a good job at franchising that. The creative part of it is the building relationships. The rest of it is a process.
So the process is there and the details are up to you to figure out.
For sure. Yeah.
Well, let's move into a couple other things. We're almost through our time, but and tell me what you think of this. Your goal is to move away from being paid directly for your time. Your time is far more valuable than money. And if you go back to that Venn diagram, which I like so much, it's like what you can get paid for, what you like to do. He's really strongly suggesting, maybe not in that diagram, what you want to do is spend your time on things you want to do, but you want to make enough money in this other time. If it takes all that time to make your money, then maybe that's not a fair trade.
Isn't there a Naval quote that says something along the lines of nobody can beat being you, or something like that? Beat you at being you, or something like that?
There's so many
Naval what exactly quotes. It is.
Yeah. He's got another one about being paid or there's this make yourself valuable, make yourself scarce. I don't think that's one of his, but it's like nobody can be better at being the best you. And his quote from the book, and I gather that Naval knows Sahil there, that creating a product is a process of discovery, not mere implementation. Technology is applied science, and like everything Naval says, it sort of makes sense. And you can think of examples of it, but that whole time thing, I don't know. So Nate, when you were last year when we were talking, you were talking about maybe quoting a little bit more, but it was maybe less about like, okay, I figure out how many hours and here's what I want to charge, and more about like what makes this project worthwhile for me, or hopefully it's that way. I don't know. Do you have a thought about separating time and revenue is dependent on hours?
It's a blur. I'm on the cusp of like, I still quantify my hours as a fixed wage, and I tend to bill that way. My work can sprawl when I'm working on someone's house, and it can go in a million different directions. It's hard to tell how much to charge for something like that. So I tend to quantify my time still. I dream of a place where it's more fluid, where it's more project-based cost. Like, I'm going to do this thing and I'm going to guess how many hours it goes into it. I don't really know. It doesn't really matter. I'm getting the same amount coming out of it.
Tyler, have you been able to, just give people lump sum quotes for projects and they're happy with that?
Yep. So I do
Yeah.
both lump sum and build hours. Yep. So for forest management plans, I do lump sum, and then that's the game for me, is like try to beat my hourly rate. For stuff that I really, it might be a little bit different than what Nate does with construction and or not construction, but like woodworking. I have a pretty good grasp on how long something's going to take in the woods, but I'm going to bill you for whatever, and here's the, it might take this many hours, but I'm going to, even if it gets over that, you're going to pay me, and they're okay with that generally.
So, I mean, is the hourly reserved for more of the uncertainty? Like, we don't know how long it's going to take. Yeah, that's kind of a safeguard.
A forest management plan that's once every 10 years. That's just like, if you want tax savings for the next 10 years, you're going to pay me whatever it is, $1,000 or what, $1,500, whatever it is.
Yeah, you have that balance, that value for them. They know what it's worth based on
right. And I remember Nate and I talked about this during our session. Like, Nate, like, people want that number, and they can agree to that number, and that's very easy for
I
them.
still do projects like that. I just want to be clear. A lot of times I've been working for other contractors a lot.
Yeah.
And they're the ones who need a fixed price. They have a budget. They're working with a client. They don't care what it is. Their client's paying it. They just need to know what that is for their budget, and they can mark it up.
Right.
Now, and I've done, a good percentage of my work this year has been through that. And some have been really lucrative and some have been break even. But even the break even has been, hitting my margins. Right. I marked up my hourly to encompass like a margin that I thought was reasonable. Coming out of this class, now I make money.
Right. Yeah, and that's the other, there really is there's no break even for me. As long as I can pay my own wages, I can pay my taxes, and I can afford the, my website and my email address and whatever else, the mapping software. That,
so you don't have a big hurdle to get over to do that.
Right.
So Allison, I'm not ignoring you just because I pay you hourly on projects. What have you had any success in quoting just lump sums to people for things, or thinking along those lines?
Yeah, I have. It depends on the project. Sometimes I'll I'm sort of similar to these guys. I will do a variety depending on what the project is. I don't know. Yeah, I guess more of my work tends to really be hourly, and I'm fine with that for now. I don't know.
Hey, if the rate is sufficient, then that can be good. And then there's always, like we talked about last year, there's always a way to take hourly income and turn it into something that compounds somewhere else, right? To put it someplace else and have it work for you. We're at our hour mark. Let me throw one more question in that I had kind of in the back of the notes, and I'll ask this of everybody. Who would you recommend this book to, and why? Matt, who would you recommend this to? Who do you think should read this?
I think Pat Sadler, Forester, for us. I think Adam would agree with that.
Adam automatically laughs anytime Pat's name is brought up for some reason that I don't understand.
I think you understand.
So Adam, who are you going to recommend this book to? And you can't say Pat.
Man, I don't know. That's a good question. I haven't really thought about that.
Would it be younger Adam, maybe?
Yeah, along with every other book that we've read in the last 6 weeks or whatever this has been.
Well, I read most of these books when I was older than all of you, so I'm in the same boat on that one. Tyler, who you gonna suggest this book to?
I'm probably gonna suggest it to myself, my current present self. Yeah, just because I glanced at one thing and what did it say? It said in your notes, it said you're not. What did it say? You're just constantly worrying about profitability, not overall revenue. Was that what it was? I can't remember. But
He had a line about, you want to be profitable right away. And I think in his world, people are sometimes just trying to grow in the hopes that
that's what it was. Yeah.
Some investor buys them. But, you're building this business to own it. And to be able to own it, you have to make a profit. If you want to grow and if you want to benefit from it, you can't say, okay, well, we're losing money for now, but we're going to turn the corner.
Right. And that was one of the things I hated most about my old job is they were a profit sharing company, but for the 4 years I worked there, they never made any profit. Nobody shared any of it. Anyways, but yeah,
we'll share it once we get it. Right?
Yeah, then that's my worst nightmare is getting too big that I become stressed out again. That was not a good time in my life working for that company.
You seem to be really seeing you a year later and thinking back. You were stressed and you seem very happy right now, and I'm glad.
And, honestly, Steve, it was just meeting everybody in the group where 80% of them worked for themselves, and like seeing a whole group of these guys. It's like, well, if they can do it, I could do it, right?
Right.
It's just that leap of faith, Just I never worked for myself before.
You were going to, and that maybe sped it up slightly, I think.
Definitely.
So I'm glad to see it. Allison, who are you going to recommend this book to?
I would recommend this book to it's like young people just getting started, who are not really realizing like what the potential opportunities of working for themselves could be, and not really seeing that as an opportunity. But also to I think also it has a good value for folks who are like a little more established and who aren't taking advantage of technology. Open-minded people who are business owners that aren't taking advantage of technology in ways that they could. I think it has a lot of kind of good lessons there for those folks.
For sure. How about you, Nate? Who do you think should read this book?
I have no idea. I would piggyback on what Allison said. I think there's a lot of younger people coming out of school or even going into school. I think this might be a prerequisite to going into college.
Yeah, my 16-year-old might unfortunately be having this added to her list, but she's pretty good about reading the one. Well, she doesn't complain. I don't think she thinks they're all the greatest. The last one she proofread was this new book that I'm working on, and she liked parts of it, so that was encouraging to me. I'm going to be recommending this to people that express interest in my business startup boot camp this coming mud season. So as a reminder, if you know anybody that, if you can think of someone who was you and that wants to start their own business and wants to spend some time on a business plan, not so much for the plan, but for the thought process of like, okay, how am I going to make this work? Anybody like that, send them my way.
You got it.
All right.
Is boot camp I think I asked you this already, but is it location specific or is it global?
I'm hoping to do something in person. So it was funded by Farm Credit East, so that sort of restricts me to the Northeast states, so that they're not sticklers. So I still don't know what it looks like. I would like to get half a dozen people in the same place, but if it doesn't work out that way and I have to do it virtually, then maybe that's how I have to do it. So we'll see.
Are you like dragging tires around and bringing out kettlebells? Like, what kind of boot camp is this?
Yeah, it's more of like eating pizza and sitting still till you get your business plan written.
Oh, that kind of boot camp.
Having my daughters stop by with things they baked to keep us fueled, to keep moving. Lots of coffee involved as well. We'll see. By the way, we all do have the potential for a field trip together. Looks like at least the main leg of that will be scheduled around the Council on Forest Engineering annual meeting, the Northeast version that happens in Orono in March. I don't have specific dates yet. One last thing is I would like to late in January, probably get together. Any of you that want to, again, for another book. And this book is called Velocity. If you liked reading The Goal, this takes place about 10 or 12 years later, and it combines the theory of constraints, Lean, and Sigma 6. It's finally out in audiobook. Slightly better novel as far as that goes, but the theory is there and they apply it. And I had read it a few years ago. I'm just going through it again. So I'll send an announcement out, and if you're interested, we'll all be back together in January to talk about it.
Awesome.
Well, glad everybody could get together to talk about this tonight, and look forward to getting together hopefully next month.
Nice
Bye
seeing
now.
everyone.
Have a good night, everybody.